Show on 702, your number one news and talk station.
Welcome to the Money Show this evening. It's nice to have you with us, and thanks for all your SMSs and your tweets tonight, coming through thick and fast about the politicians you would and would not want to employ. And it's interesting. I mean, Panyaza Lesufi gets a vote. Panyaza Lesufi is the Gauteng MEC for Education, who has done very well in that role, being very communicative in that role, especially in the aftermath of the poisoning of 3 kids at a school feeding scheme in Gauteng last week. Very quick to respond. People like his proactive approach. Gordon gets a couple of votes, and Aaron Motsoaledi, the health minister, people say, yeah, those are the kind of guys that are in the current dispensation who would get jobs in the private sector. Is there anybody else, considering how many politicians have made the move from private into public sector over recent years? Keep those SMSs coming through. Well, the Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown today has been telling Parliament that state-owned airline SA Express is in an extremely difficult financial position. It requires government financial assistance to prepare its annual financial statements. She wants National Treasury to grant it a guarantee to carry on operations. SAA apparently will also be applying to have its existing government guarantee extended. Now, neither SAA nor SA Express will be able to table their financial statements by the end of September, as is required by the Public Finance Management Act. Auditor Stephen Fierer from Nkonki has been warning for some time that SA Express certainly is in a mess, and indeed SIPS, which is part of the DTI, is on the verge of declaring that board delinquent. Stephen Fierer, technical partner at Nkonki, you've been expecting this for some time, I suspect.
Yes, Bruce, and how are you doing? And good evening to your listeners. I just want to put one thing in perspective.
Sure.
You don't need a bailout to prepare financial statements.
No.
That is why you have a year-end, and you should be preparing your financial statements at year-end, no matter whether you need money or not. So the financial statements would say we need money. So I don't think it's actually correct to suggest that in order to prepare your financial statements, you need money. However, and I take my hat off to Lynn Brown, I must say, for let's call it being brutally honest about the situation. In an airline, it's very difficult to have financial statements that are qualified or modified in any manner, because you've got lease agreements, you've got covenants that you have to deal with, and a qualified or modified set of financial statements may kick in sort of what we call lease return conditions. You may have to return your planes, and you just can't have that. So I understand all the standards, but it's a bigger picture here. When she says that she needs money to prepare financial statements, it's to avoid a bigger disaster, if you get what I'm trying to say.
No, I'd like you to spell it out in greater detail, Stephen. I mean, you've audited SA Express in the past. You know the business better than most of us.
Well, what I'm trying to say, Bruce, is that let's assume what it says in the article. I think it's 450 million rand, if I'm not mistaken. If SA Express get a qualified or modified balance sheet on going concern, wouldn't you, as a lender or a lessor of those planes or covenants and what goes on in those agreements, wouldn't you want to say, well, now there's a problem, and most of these leases for aeroplanes have got return conditions in them. So if you have a modified report or if you do something wrong, you have to return the planes. So maybe 450 million would be better than having to return the planes. It makes even more to do that, and that's what I'm trying to say. So I think that's what she's really trying to get at.
But also, I mean, the situation hasn't developed overnight at SA Express. Certainly, it's a company you have audited in the past.
No, it definitely hasn't, Bruce. When we prepared the auditor's report in 2011, we mentioned in an emphasis of matter that there was a going concern problem. The Auditor General, which took over from us in 2012, also mentioned that there was a going concern problem. So really 2-3 years ago, these things were on the go, and from what I see in the sets of financial statements in 2012, which the Auditor General did, there was a bailout, I think, of 500 million rand in order to keep going. Yeah, so it's nothing new.
But here's Lynn Brown. On one hand, she's a public enterprise, saying that that we need some kind of financial support for SA Express, which is state-owned. On the other hand, we've got the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, the SIPS, which is part of the DTI, saying that the board is in danger of being declared delinquent. So hold on a second. Here's Lynn Brown wanting extra money to be given to a board that's on the verge of being declared delinquent. That's left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing, surely.
Yes, maybe so, Bruce, but we've got to separate those two issues. Because the board is delinquent doesn't mean you must let the down. And I think the shareholder has got a responsibility to step in and make sure these things don't fall apart. And I 100% agree with and are you there?
Yes, I am.
And Astrid Luden and her team there for wanting to warn these directors of South African Express Airways about their legal duties and obligations, because if you, for example, if you need 450 million rand to keep going and to keep afloat, well, there's the danger of contravening Section 22 of the Companies Act, which is trading recklessly with the intent to defraud creditors. And when we say the intent to defraud creditors, we're not saying they're purposefully doing it, but an inference can be made that, if you know that you can't pay your debts as and when they become due, yet you take on more debt, one can assume that that's intentional. So there's this danger, and she talks about that in this article that's in the paper today about directors' fiduciary duties and trading recklessly, and that they wouldn't satisfy the solvency and liquidity tests. And this is a major issue, and the problem is the directors are not being held accountable sufficiently, I believe, and appropriately, I believe. It's all very well talking about it in the newspaper, etc., but one has to do action. They need to start applying Section 162 of the Companies Act, which is delinquent directors, where they trade under insolvent conditions, where they continue to take on more debt, knowing that they're going to get a bailout, hopefully, they pray, from government. And government can't always come to the party.
Dr. Stephen Fierer, the technical partner at Nkonki, on the line to us in Johannesburg this evening.
EWN Traffic.